It's Friday night. It's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what it is in other time zones. Don't ask me to do math. But we are here. We're here to talk comics. We're here to talk Kickstarter. We're here to talk crowdfunding. Close observers of the show will note that both Will and I are here for the first time in 3 weeks. It wasn't meant to be a one-man show the last 2 weeks, but you know what? Will and I will persevere. Will, how are you doing? Because I haven't talked to you in about 14 days. Well, no, 21
Yeah,
days because I've missed.
yeah, I am healing up, so I am almost back to 100% after a bout with a certain virus that I don't want to talk about. But
Yeah.
it's good to be back.
I was telling you, I think you won. I think you were the marathoner who got it last. So in a game of Survivor, I think Will Allred, you won. I don't know. We can ask the panel, but I don't really think we need to dig our graves into that. Let's talk about the projects that we have tonight. I'm going to let you go first, Will, on your 30-second pitch because you have 30 seconds to convince people to get to your page in the next 56 minutes. Crossover Division is almost about to close, so if you want to get your awesome hardcover, you better listen to this man as he pitches you and pitches you hard.
Here we go. Stories are invading reality and threaten to fracture it beyond repair, and only an English professor and a research librarian have the smarts and knowledge to save us all from an unhappy ending.
Absolutely gorgeous. Like we said, we're gonna try if Will or I pay attention to our clocks, and we probably won't, to be there at the end of the campaign to celebrate the fireworks going off. But in the meantime, we have some campaigns with more than 56 minutes to go. George, you have been on the show before for Toddler Apocalypse.
Yeah.
What are you doing now?
I am bringing the entire series, the 4-issue series of Charlie Spot, to Kickstarter.
What is Charlie Spot?
Charlie Spot is about a homeless veteran who has his prized busking spot in the city park stolen from him. And it's about the ridiculous adventure he goes on through the city and the evil suburbs to figure out who stole his spot and how he can get it back.
Awesome. All right. So there may be some unknown callers in that comic. I don't know. So, Mike, what is Unknown Caller?
Unknown Caller is a love letter to Asian cinema and the revenge genre in general. It's a black and white thriller that is really heavily influenced by the Park Chan-wook revenge trilogy. But more for people who aren't familiar with that, we'd like to say it's a little bit John Wick, it's a little bit Sixth Sense. It's a revenge trilogy with supernatural twist.
I'm going to do everything I can not to make this a Kill Bill conversation for the next 2 hours, but I am watching both this week. I've got about 20 minutes left in volume 2. So if I do, I apologize. I'm probably going to do that because you know what? I decided this week, I think those two might be my favorite movie ever. We're going to get to that later. We got to get to Mandrill P.I. Chris, what is Mandrill P.I.?
Well, if you ever asked yourself the question, who stops cartoons when they turn criminal, then your answer would be Mandrill P.I. So it's a noir urban fantasy set in a cartoon world where the protagonist investigates occult and supernatural mysteries. So it's kind of like Hellboy meets Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Awesome. All right. We're a little bit everywhere. Got two comedies, and we got a revenge kung fu flick. You know what? Let's start with one of our comedies and put a little bit of revenge in the middle as the nice Oreo cookie of the show. I want to hear about cartoon killer. Let's do Mandrill P.I. Now this isn't a comic book, but we can get comics. Am I right?
This is correct. So this is a series that I serialize over both comics and prose. So I've done 4 issues thus far on Kickstarter for the comic, and this is the second novel. And then there will be 2 more issues in this first arc of the comic. Issue number 5 probably launching on Kickstarter in August-ish or so, depending on how quickly I can get fulfilled for this current Kickstarter. And then issue 6 coming after that, and then the third novel will come after that. And then after on to the next arc of the comics.
So was this something that was always planned, or did you find alternating it once you started?
I started alternating it after I started. I did the first comic first as a Kickstarter, and was starting to build some audience up there, and wanted to cross over that audience to my prose works. And this is a series that was actually started as a prose work. I like the challenge of taking sort of a cartoon world and something super visual, and hey, how do I turn that into something prose that would just be like, it seemed like a super fun challenge. And so that's where it started. And then I was on the subreddit Comic Book Collabs and saw Carlos Trigo on there, and I was like, this guy, he would be the perfect artist for adapting this into a comic book. And I reached out to him and asked him if he had availability, and he did. And I was like, okay, I can't wait until I finish writing all the novels. I have to pull him in now. And we did a prequel issue first, which was about 12 pages long. And then that was sort of my test to see kind of how his art would stand up to the full series. And obviously he did an awesome job there. So I pulled him in and said, hey, let's turn this into first a 6-issue arc. And then if we make the money back from that through Kickstarter, then we can keep going. And so, yeah, it's been an awesome ride so far. And Carlos has been awesome.
Well, if you don't mind sharing your page with us, we can look at it as we talk. That's super interesting. I can't wait to kind of read the two and see the voice of a novel versus the voice of a comic script, and the way it goes out. But let's look at this page first.
Sure. So I would be remiss if I didn't start with one thing, and I'm not going to play the video because I know that we're going to be on audio later. But right. George here on the call wrote the theme song for Mandrill PI. So if you want to check that out, he did an amazing job, and very much like vibes of London Calling. So, something about that song always hit with me as a creepy, tense song, and I always felt like it would be a good into something like noir urban fantasy. And George took that as inspiration and just did something like super awesome. So you should definitely play, even if you don't want to watch the entire video at some point, just at least watch the first minute so you can hear George's work.
All right. The Clash is my wife's favorite band. So you've got a listener in this household. I'll get her on it.
Awesome.
So how do you bring a cartoon world alive in prose? What sort of things do you do? How do you play with that?
Yeah, so a lot of the inspiration for it, at least the character, Mandrill, his name's Manny Mandrill, so I might sometimes refer to him as Manny and sometimes Mandrill. So the inspiration for him, I'll get to that in just a second. But first, he's the straight man of this entire series, and so you have this insane, chaotic world surrounding him. And every neighborhood is inhabited by a different species, or you have the center of the city called the Greys, which is black and white, which came into existence before color entered the world. And Manny is this down on his luck private detective. He lives in the Greys even though he's in color, so he's the only colorized thing in the part of the neighborhood that he lives. Ultimately, the inspiration for him came down to something I was going through in my real life. He is a down on his luck, just bottom of the barrel guy in his life, or Mandrill, when the story starts. And so over the course of the series, he moves from his lowest point up to sort of redemption. And he was inspired really by my parents, who late 2011, early 2012, my mom died, and then in 2017 or 2018 in May, my dad did as well. And I was going through this pretty low spot in my life, and so where this novel came from is just sort of looking around at the world around me and seeing just sort of the chaos and insanity of real life, and using that almost as inspiration for this character. So this character starts bottom of the barrel, pretty addicted to substances and pretty down. And then over the course of the series, learns to rely on his friends and learns to rely on just the hopefulness in the world around him, and is really redeemed by the end of the third novel. And so that's really where it came from, to answer that question. So long-winded way of answering that question.
Hey, we don't have an end time. You answer these questions any way you want to.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna ask a deep question. Which of your parents do you think would have most loved this work, or do you think they both would have loved different parts of it?
I think they would have both loved different parts of it, but probably my mom more than my dad, because she was probably a lot more into like the cartoon side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so Manny in this story, like he's lost his wife to something just like in a cartoon world where violence and craziness happens all the time. It was something just like super mundane for his wife. So his wife died of lung cancer, and he was on like the homicide unit in the police force, and sort of drank himself off the force and into the and sort of started a business running a PI investigation firm where he investigates like supernatural and occult mysteries. And just overall, I would say both the genre of hard-boiled detective mysteries and also cartoons and really reading in general, I got from my mom. And so I'd say mostly her.
Okay, less deep. If you have a noir detective who isn't a drunk, is it a noir detective story?
I was thinking the same thing, because as you were explaining it, I was like, man, this has got a real Eddie Valiant feel to it. But I was like, no, wait a minute. No, that's just all of them.
There's I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just the first ones we were exposed to have it, and we all just kind of have to get in that muck. But it feels like it has to be almost.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I'd say, like, as I was doing some research into some of the tropes of noir, not only having kind of grown up on a lot of reading of it, it was pretty apparent pretty early on that pretty much every single protagonist.
Lead guy has to be drunk, and every woman has to be trusted, right?
Yep, exactly. But by the end of this one, though, Manny is not the end of this one, but the end of the series. Manny, I'll just spoil it, is less so and up on an upward trajectory. So
okay, all right. Well, all right. Let's look at the art of you're a comic artist, and when you approach your comic script, do you approach it in a similar way as you do your prose writing, or is it a different mindset?
Probably a different mindset, because I can be a little. One of the fun things about prose is that you can be verbose, because you're not limited to word count in a panel. Comics obviously are quite different. So it's one of those things where with comics, it's I'll be verbose in the panel descriptions sometimes, not in like an art direction way, but just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking for this panel, and this was the inspiration for this panel. And if there's a need for a reference, then I'll include those in the script, all that fun stuff. And then sometimes my scripts will begin with the dialogue being a little bit more copy heavy than they will at the end. And one of the nice things about Carlos is even when I haven't limited those dialogues as much as I should in a comic script, he is such a good partner that sometimes he will either push back a little bit on something like that and say, we just don't have room for the art here, or say, look, this is the trade-off that we can make here. And so he has been just a phenomenal partner, as both I've learned that medium a bit more because it's something that I always wanted to do, and also just in general taking the crazy, insane things that I throw out there and turning it into something even cooler when it comes out of his hand than I ever could have imagined doing it. When I first started writing comics, before I partnered with him, I was probably a lot more directive on things like camera angle and those kinds of things that you feel a lot more passionate about probably when you're first starting into writing scripts. And then as you learn to trust an artist and learn that their design, their eye for design and angle and all of those fun things are probably better than yours, you lean into those a little bit more.
Hopefully.
So, yeah.
Hopefully they're better than yours. You know, like, ideally they're better than yours.
Ideally. With Carlos, that's the case. So it's been one of those things where, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think the hope for in a collaboration is you. I think we're all writers here. Am I correct? I think the hope is that you find an artist who's willing to take ownership on the book,
yeah,
and make choices that make it better. And then you as a writer have to actually look at the change for what it is and actually know when it's better and know when it's, impinging on what the thought was. And then you have to kind of have a conversation. But it's great that you guys have that relationship already.
Yeah, and it's one of those cool relationships that has developed basically all over email, because he lives out in Spain, and so it's us just sort of going back and forth and discussing through that. So yeah, it's been awesome.
We do have a question in the chat. I want to Chris, advice for prose authors wanting to get into writing indie comics. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, so I would start, Tom, by I would either think about taking one of your shorter works and figuring out how you would adapt it to a comic and using that to practice comic script writing. That's what I did when I was first trying to cross over. Or taking a could be a TV episode or a movie that you're interested in, or a book you're interested in, and just doing some practice trying to adapt that into comics and trying to figure out like the tropes and where page breaks should be and all of those fun kinds of things. Because it's something that you when you have chapter breaks in prose, it's kind of similar, but with a comic, it's every page you need to end the page with the author or with the reader thinking, oh, I've got to jump to the next page. And it's a bit more of a concise medium, as well as obviously a visual one. But that's really where I would start with some of those types of practices before jumping over. And then from there, after you practice with like a 12 to 24 page issue, then I would start thinking like bigger scale, if that's what you want to do.
I think that's great advice. Like, take with a movie or something you're really into. Like, take a movie you've seen 100 times and work with that, because that's something that you know so intimately. That's going to be a great one. And then obviously read hundreds of comics and read Scott McCloud.
Yeah. Gotta read Scott McCloud.
I mean, just that was expected and understood.
Yeah. And
if you are new and don't know that, understanding comics, Scott McCloud is exceptional advice. I don't want to because we've all read it, and it is amazing, because it really, I can't read, the Spirit author, Will Eisner's, that's a little bit past me, but Scott McCloud dumbs it down that even I can understand it. So definitely understanding comics. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, he actually he did a follow-up called Reinventing Comics, which talked about web comics and infinite page, which I don't think was successful. But then he followed that one up with was it Making Comics, or I can't remember what the title was, but it talks about choosing shots. It has a lot of really great information in it on the thought process that goes into a panel and a page, and how things should flow. It's really good. I highly recommend it.
Like, even if I think that's an interesting, fun read, even if you're not looking to get into making comics. Like, he just did a damn good job with it, because he's a really good storyteller.
Yeah, any medium that you love, understanding how it's created gives you a second thing that you enjoy about it, in my opinion. So yeah, even if you're not trying to write comics, it's worth checking out. Have you ever sat down to write a chapter of the prose or an issue of the comic and thought, God damn it, I wish this was the other one because I know it would work better in that one.
Yeah, one of the cases in point is the prequel comic that we did. The prequel comic is this 12-page like one shot that is Manny solving a case that the anthropomorphic moon of this world called in. She believes that her husband, Mr. Sun, is cheating on her. And so it starts out with Manny up on a rooftop taking pictures of the sun, like cheating on Miss Moon. And then the sun spots him and starts throwing fireballs at him. And then he jumps into the sewers and has an encounter with some sewer rats, and then an encounter with a sewer crocodile before basically escaping and getting the evidence back to Miss Moon. And it was one of those things where like, wow, this one was so crazy. It'd be kind of really fun to just take that challenge and turn it into prose. I haven't had time to do it yet. And so it's one of those things where it would be really fun. And then as I was writing the first novel in the series, I was just thinking more and more about how I would love to see how Carlos adapts that into comics, because the first novel really involves basically a bunch of were creatures that are trying to take over Toonsville is the name of the city here. And so you have a lot of like there's a were swan in the beginning that's murdering people. There's a bunch of were mastiffs, those kinds of things running throughout the city, and it's just chaos all over the place. And this character right here that's on my screen, his name is Kip Catfish, and he runs around the city in this old-timey copper diving suit, and it's got this infinite tube back here that connects to his home neighborhood in Toonsville, which is called the Fishbowl, nice. Where all the freshwater fish live. And it's one of those things where like just seeing Carlos adapt this character into like a character design that then I can turn into like pins and stuff to give as free giveaways here has been really cool to see. And I just love to see his take on this little cowboy catfish going on an adventure with Manny. But he doesn't show up in the first arc, just in the novel. So
I do have to ask, is Miss Moon shaped subtly like a butt? And if not, why?
I mean, at certain phases of the month. Yeah.
All right. Well, take us down the page and let us see some of the art while we do. But thank you so much. That was really cool to learn about the process behind. But we want to hear about the actual project so people can hop on it.
Awesome. Yeah. So basically, what I'm doing up here right up top is I'm doing these weekly free gifts to backers. And sometimes they'll be physical, sometimes they'll be digital. And so the first few gifts have been for people who back on a physical level. Right now, if you back by this Sunday, then you get a free acrylic pen of Kip Catfish. The ones that people have missed if they haven't backed yet are a free acrylic pen of Ernie Elephant, who's one of the main characters in the comic, who by the time the novel starts, he's an elephant head. He's a floating vampire elephant head. And then the other one for the first day backers was this Mandrill PI pen.
You really are very creative in this, are you? It's just all stuff we've seen before.
Exactly. So, yeah. And then stretch goals, I'll zoom past those, but they're basically have gotten some of those unlocked. And then when you get to the actual breakdown of the book, I took inspiration from comics and did a variant cover. I think my screen might be too zoomed in to see the whole thing, but I thought it would be fun to have my cover artists for the novel basically do two opposing viewpoints of this showdown in Murder City, because that's the name of the novel. And so you have Manny shooting off with the villain here of the book from each angle, depending on which cover you get. And then the description of the book, basically the plot is that one of the biggest celebrities in town has had his toddlers kidnapped, and the celebrity is basically like a Steve Irwin parody, who's a Tasmanian devil, and Manny, while he's on that case, finds himself being hunted by mysterious figures from his past, and he's got to turn the tables on them, or they're going to murder him and the toddlers and basically everybody important to him. And so this is, like we said before, a prose work. It's about 250 pages. The actual printout of the book has a few more pages because there's front and back matter. And then I also have commissioned a cartographer to make a map of the city so that people can understand what's happening in relation to where everything is in the city. And so that's included in the book and the digital files. And then in addition to this, I've gotten Carlos to draw a super limited edition print that one of the tiers I make available in metal, so that if somebody wants the metal version, then that's a tier, and then it's an add-on as well if you're not into the metal version. And so basically what he's done here is take some of the villains from the book and Mandrill and make this awesome print. And then the previous novel, I also had him do a print for that. So it's people's chance to, every time they back, get another print from Carlos and just keep building that collection of these super cool limited edition prints and have fun with them. And then this right here is the novella that people can get for free if they want to read the beginning of the series without committing fully yet to the entire book. And then after that, we get into creators and the why come to Kickstarter, and then the tiers of rewards.
So if somebody wanted to get all the comics and the novella and the novel, could they get it on this page?
Yes, there's a comics and novels digital catch up tier, and so you can get all 4 comics so far, and plus all of the prose novels for this tier right here, the $32 tier, and then there's a digital tier for just the prose. And so because this is a campaign focused more on the novels, a lot of the comics works are showing up as add-ons in this campaign rather than
as a tier,
portions of the actual tiers.
Got it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, does anybody else have a quick question, or should we get our revenge on?
No question. But looking at those pins, I mean, those are going to look so fantastic.
Yeah,
in real life.
And
like,
I'm a sucker.
I have gotten into like making pins for all my books, and because I was jealous of people who were doing that for themselves, and now I'm like super jealous of your pins.
Yeah, and you're getting free pins that a lot of times are $15 on Kickstarter, to be honest. That's a heck of a value.
Nice. Yeah, I wanted to give early backers something just like really cool and exclusive, and also just entice people to back early, because as we all know, like the early backing, it's how you can guarantee your Kickstarter gets funded and is successful. So.
Mm-hmm.
The algorithm.
Yes.
Yeah. The all-powerful algorithm.
I can't wait to never have to worry about that word again.
Oh yeah, because definitely algorithms are definitely going away. So we're certainly going to be free of those.
Yeah,
we're going to go to the grocery shop.
There are people going through their day not concerned about algorithms at all, and I'm jealous of them.
Oh man, I can only imagine what that is like. Oh, Mike, let's get into Unknown Caller. As I said before, I will try not to make this just a review of Kill Bill. So what was your entrance to kind of the Kung Fu genre that got you into this type of storytelling?
So I'm not the writer of Unknown Caller. Kevin Miller is the writer of Unknown Caller. I'm the editor of Invader that is publishing it. I edited the book.
If you had to steal his brain, no. So okay, let's.
No, I mean I've worked very, very closely with Kevin. He's a good friend of mine. Known him for a long time.
So when he brought you this idea, what made you excited about doing it? Then let's be more on how you feel about it.
So Kevin is he's a unique participant in the comic space. He's a producer who has worked with History Channel, Discovery Channel, Comedy Central. He actually was intimately involved in the most recent rebranding of Comedy Central. So he is a person who is intimately involved in storytelling, but doesn't really get a chance to dig in. He's just peripheral to it.
Mhm.
And he's just got such a love for visual storytelling in general. And you can absolutely tell both in this book and in the previous book he did as Recall, which was a completely wordless graphic novel. It was all about the visual storytelling, and my God, you can just see it on every single page. And when I say that it's a love letter to Asian cinema, you can see that as well. And so much of what I find really frustrating about movies now is that like there's just so much filler. The like every frame of painting aesthetic has just gone away so much, where you can just tell that like, okay, they sent a B crew after this and like, oh, we just need a picture, we need a scene of this guy walking into the cafe, we need a scene of this, and somebody just gets that, and there's no actual thought behind making that beautiful. And there's absolutely, you can see that his interest came from that here. Not only that, it's just, I don't know, I'm into revenge shit, man. It feels good. Like you get to the end of this thing, and there are so many books that, especially when you try something like this, I find that you have to read them twice. And this is not a book that you need to read twice. It's a book that really encourages you to read twice. You're gonna love it the first time through and feel completely satisfied. And then when you read it again, you'll find all these things that you missed along the way that will inform your reading of it and just make it even better.
I think whenever you can find that, I probably read Watchmen every 4 or 5 years, and every time I do, there's something new that I didn't notice the first 8 or 10 times. I'm like, oh shit, it's right.
And that's when a creator put something into it. It wasn't just something that they were like, oh, let's try this and just throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. Like this is something that was a labor of love that you went through, and you actually spent time thinking about every single aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And from the very beginning, even back when Vader was 2 and 5 Inc., and I started working as the editor there, and I was picking books, my absolute guiding light every single time was I was going to pick the books that I wanted to publish the same way that I would pick the books out at the indie table when I was a kid going into the comic shop. I just, if a book stood out to me and I read 3-4 pages and I was like, oh fuck yeah, I got to take this home. All right, I need that feeling. Otherwise, why am I doing this?
Right. Right.
Everyone here knows how much work this is. So,
well, not Will. He just, and it's just done.
I think in one of the episodes you missed, it's like I said, it's like pushing a boulder up a hill with a wet noodle. That's what making comics is.
It seems really easy compared to what my truck. What? No, I think that's great that you're putting books out for people, and I thank you for doing that. And I have nothing to do with Invader. I think that's cool that you're grabbing, like you said, Kevin. Which, by the way, big fan of Kevin's. I think I can speak for all of us. We support all Kevins except for Federline. He's doing fine. But
we need the help.
Yeah. But it's that thing of like you're taking people who want to do it, and you're giving them the way to tell their stories, and I think that's amazing that you're doing that for people.
Honestly, what it started out as is when I first started going around to Comic Cons, and I would walk down the aisles and I would see all of these books, and I was like, this book is better than what I'm seeing on the shelves at the comic shop. And I would talk to the people, and these are guys hustling. These are girls hustling. They're going all over the country. They're putting in the work, but they're not getting the exposure they deserve. Like they're not even getting solicited through Diamond. That frustrated the fuck out of me. But I would literally see books that were better than what I was finding on the local comic shop shelves. Why? That's just an injustice. Mm-hmm. So, while the door's open, just try to scoot as many people through as you can.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to pull up the screen. Let's check this book out. So we already met the writer Kevin. Who's the art team, and how did that team come together?
So Kevin found Marco Perugini. He's an Italian artist, just through Instagram. Actually, he was just looking at different artists and came across his style and said, "Oh shit, this fits perfectly," because it needed something that had that inspiration of Asian cinema, but not obviously just completely taking a page from that. It just needed to have that kind of sensibility.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm looking at this art, and it's reminding me of the artist on Black Cotton, which is a book we've had on the show, and is actually I'll give a quick hit. You got like 9 hours to back Black Cotton Volume 2, but that same feel, and it's also a gritty alternative history type of a story. I'm not saying yours is alternative history, but that gritty, violent, kind of down in the dirt type of storytelling. It's a great artistic style for it.
Yeah, it's the simplicity that allows all of that action and energy to come through the page. So he literally just approached people randomly that he really liked what they were doing. Same with the letterer there. We always love to give them their due, so we put them right on the cover there.
Nice.
Keith did the previous book that Kevin did called Recall, which was a story inspired by the Betty and Barney Hill UFO abduction. It's not like directly because of that, but and interestingly enough, Chris, you were talking about the dual covers you had for your book. We did the exact same thing with Recall, where the one cover was the shot basically from the alien's perspective, looking down on the car, and the other one was looking up.
That's awesome.
Doing that as well, and honestly, that's the big reason that we're doing this through Kickstarter. All of our books are solicited in previews, but we bring them to Kickstarter with a unique cover. This time done by our art director Michael Nelson. So he did this one as our Kickstarter exclusive cover.
That's a damn good cover.
Nice.
Yeah,
who did your logo?
Again, that's part Mike Nelson. It's part Fernando Pinto, and it's part Tim Daniel. They were all going crazy on that, and they brought us some really great stuff.
Nice.
Really great. Wouldn't look anywhere near as good if it weren't for those guys. But we just, man, listen, I don't want to like shit on Diamond or anything, but I'm gonna. We just got really.
It's a week to do that.
Yeah, true. We just got really frustrated with, the gatekeeping there. We never knew who was buying our books, and like I put out a book with my brother 10 years ago, and then suddenly late last year we got an order from Diamond for 200 more copies of it. Nobody had bought a copy of that in literally like 8 years, other than that we sold directly. So like,
right.
Tell me why. Tell me who. Where did it come from? Let me send them a gift basket. Just anything.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. I actually asked. My book comes out through Scout, and when Charlie Stickney was still co-publishing, I said, can I reach out to some of the shops that have kind of done the most? And he was like, you can't, because we have no idea. Like, say you've done great and you've sold 2,000 copies of some. There might be a shop somewhere who bought 500 copies because they know their clientele, and that's 25% of your books.
Yep.
Wouldn't you love to be able to say, hey, you've done this for me. I just checked JetBlue. It's $99 for me to get to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just send them extras. Send them just anything, man.
And there's no way to know, and that's not optimal.
Yeah.
No.
So Kickstarter allows us to actually directly interact with the people buying the book, and it allows us to put out a unique cover, an exclusive cover for everyone. So we have the 2022 series of Kickstarter exclusive covers, the 2023 series of Kickstarter exclusive covers. It's something. It's really fun. I mean,
Do you have retail tiers on this Kickstarter?
We do deal. We don't like to promote that too much because we don't want to, piss off anybody. But we do.
It's okay. Diamond's already mad at you, so
Yeah,
if
that's
they're
true.
listening, you're fine.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think we have a huge Diamond audience, so I think you're safe.
Yeah,
Lunar, maybe. Lunar, we love you.
We absolutely, we say to every single retailer when we send out our press releases and everything, if you want to buy from us directly, you can do that, and we will beat Diamond's price. But yeah, we just, it's great to be able to, like I said, put out the unique covers, be able to say like, hey, here, do you want everything that Kevin has done up to this point? Go ahead. Do you want to buy any of our previous books? Every single, we run the Kickstarter for 15 days. It just launched 2 days ago. Every month, we offer all of our previous books at a discount, just so people can catch up. So in case they missed it, because listen,
there's a controversy I want to stop in the comments. I apologize. Victor says his dad is Walter Diamond, and how dare you? So Victor, I do apologize for any besmirching of your family name.
No, come at me.
Go on.
So we do it, for 15 days of the same month that it's in Diamond Previews. So if you want to buy from us, you can. If you want to order from your comic shop, because again, everyone here knows, just because some random customer goes into the comic shop and says, hey, I heard about Unknown Caller, will you order it? That does not mean that A, that book is going to get ordered, or B, it's going to get picked up when it comes in 3 months from now. So this is a great way to just deal directly with people.
Yeah, no, it's great to give your readers different options too, because you're guaranteed to get it if you back the Kickstarter. But if you do ask your local comic shop to order it through Diamond, Lunar, all their options. Let's say this: if you don't tell your comic shop to order it, it might not be there on Wednesday when you go in. So.
Yeah. I mean, comic shops are in an awful position. They don't have a lot of money to be playing around and taking chances on books unless they know they're going to be sold. Because if they're not, that's $10 sitting on their shelf. I completely sympathize and empathize with comic shops. Yeah. So we just try to make it easier for people. And I'll be real blunt and honest. The inspiration for this model came during COVID when I suddenly wasn't going to Comic Cons anymore and interacting with people. Right. Just kind of miss it. So now you get to.
I'm going to kind of bring it up to everybody. Do you get that feeling of a one-on-one? Because it's through the internet, but do you get that one-on-one feeling when you're dealing with Kickstarter backers?
You do when they're actually active and commenting and talking and interacting with you through social as well, because a lot of that happens. They find you on Kickstarter, but then they follow you on social and they talk, say, hey man, this looks great, and you get that feeling of, hey, yeah, we put a ton of work into this, and somebody coming on to one of your social channels and saying this cover looks fantastic, or I read the preview, holy shit, it blew me away. That feels so much better than an invoice coming in from Diamond.
Yeah. George, have you had that feeling? I know we had Toddler Apocalypse on this, so I know that you've been on it.
100%. It's like everybody here. I put my back catalog up, as a tier and add-ons and stuff. And the last couple campaigns, and this one included, there'll be somebody coming along who they're not friends, they're not family, I don't know who they are, but they just bought everything from my back catalog.
They're family now.
100%. And that's amazing. That's somebody that you legitimately just met, and again, it's through a website. Is curious enough, trusts you enough to plunk down a good chunk of change to give everything you created a shot. I mean, that's incredibly humbling and empowering, at the same time, especially if anybody like me every now and then is dealing with imposter syndrome. what better tangible real world way to kill that dumb voice of like, oh, nobody really cares, and like someone in, you know, northeast Arkansas wants to buy everything you've written.
Yeah.
That's real.
Was that you, Will?
I'm Northwest Arkansas.
Oh, I missed my
I
compass
love
was
how I
that.
tried to like put three completely random words together, and I still almost hit Will with a dart.
You're still hitting 66%. But Will, have you noticed, like, you know, you've done crossover 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you're doing the hardcover. Are you getting names, recognizing names that you had never met before, and being like, oh no, that's my tribe?
Yeah, it's really weird because, you know, George talks about imposter syndrome, and I'm like, we're building an audience, and I'll recognize, this person in London, and I'm like, shit, somebody half the world away that I have no way of ever having interacted with is plunking down, money for not just the current issue, but back issues and, some of my other work too. It's just so...
And international shipping.
And international shipping too, yeah.
He won't brag about it. He won't brag about it. It's actually Posh Spice. She can afford it.
Okay.
So
great.
I want to make sure we get into Unknown Caller and finish it out. So, how long would this series go if you hit it and go? Is this a mini? Is it a max?
This is a one and done.
One and done. Great.
Oh yeah, this is just a graphic novel. Just 84 pages, story told.
Nice. All
now
right.
we're I'm not saying it won't move into other media, but as a comic, yeah, this is done.
Yeah. Victor just said, I just had someone back my Kickstarter from Australia. That's not cheap, but it's really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see that. It's just like, yes, it's wow. Someone is willing to pay $8 for my comic and $32 to get it to them. You know?
Yeah, and sometimes more.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Does Kevin have any other ideas that he might bring to you, or are you kind of?
Oh yeah, he's a machine. We're already working on 2 more projects.
Awesome.
And actually, if you backed any of our other Kickstarters, you might have gotten an ash can of one of his books, That's Immortal Hunter, which was another one that had a logo and cover design by Tim Van Second Rocket.
All right. Well, if you could stop sharing the screen so that I don't kick you out. If I do it, you'll go away, and I don't want you to go away. Before we go to Will, we've got 8 minutes before Crossover Division closes. So I'm going to kind of like, we're gonna pause for a second. What is the greatest revenge tale you've ever read, or seen, or experienced in entertainment? I'm going to, because I came up with the question, I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds. The first revenge tale that got into my soul and just kind of put me to bed happy was The Count of Monte Cristo. I read it in, I think, 11th grade, and I might have been a little bit too into honor, justice, and revenge, but holy crap. That novel spoke to me in a way that almost nothing had ever spoken to me before.
Oh, dude, one of my good friends had the same experience, but the thing was, he came at it from this. He had been cheating on his girlfriend, and everyone caught him, and he felt like he was wrong in the situation, and so he read Count of Monte Cristo, and he was like, "Yes, absolutely. I just identified with this guy so much," and I was like, That's great, dude. I'm really happy that you're into this, but you're not the good guy.
Yes, you're the guy who swooped in and took the girl. You're not.
Yeah.
That's super. That's super. Like all of our reading comprehension isn't the same. I'm not going to say mine's better than his or worse. I'm going to say mine is different, and maybe I missed the point. Maybe you missed the point. Okay, who has a great revenge tale they want to talk about?
I think the best is Unforgiven, man. Clint Eastwood. I think that's the best. When I saw that movie, I said, "Oh shit! Nobody needs to ever make a Western again." First of all, but like that movie, the fact that the revenge is all comes in the last 10 minutes of the movie and still has a better payoff than people who start building revenge for 90 minutes. The fact that the bad guy is the good guy is the bad guy, and they have reverse arcs that cross one another.
Yeah.
The fact that he took the genre that he built his career on and turned it on its head and made arguably the best Western that has ever been made. That movie, I get goosebumps just talking about it.
All right, guys, you got something. It's going to be tough to top it, but I want to hear. George, do you have one?
I wish I had the vocabulary to like speak at this knowledgeably, but something that just came into my head. How about Princess Bride?
Oh,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
There are a couple revenges going on that one.
Yep.
You know, like trying to think of like that, right? The revenge is like that fighting and winning at the end. And I mean, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. Like, if you're not like, yeah! Like, I mean, that's the point of story in cinema, right?
Give me everything I want, everything and more. Give me
Yeah.
back, you son of a bitch. Yeah. And that's one of multiple revenges. You took my girl, blah blah blah. Yeah. I think that's a strong one. I mean,
perfect movie.
Guys, it's getting tough. Chris, it's getting tough, but I want to hear.
All right, so I've got a real answer and kind of a fake answer. The real answer, one, because Mike already took Unforgiven, I'll go with a different Western and do True Grit. I think is a pretty entertaining revenge story. But then
original or Jeff Bridges or both?
I mean, it's. I would go with the Jeff Bridges version because I like that version better, but I think obviously the John Wayne one is a bit more iconic and probably the one that my dad liked way more than the Jeff Bridges one, but I like the Jeff Bridges one a bit more. And I guess
before you start with your fake one, I have to say I'm ignorant of True Grit. I've never watched either, so I got to put it on my list.
Yeah. The other one, maybe not really a fake one, but it's just a stretch. Big Lebowski as a stretch for a revenge story where he's
you're gonna get Jeff Bridges in there one way or the other. Tron.
He's on his rug getting pissed on, so he's gonna go.
The first Iron Man. It's revenge over. But it's crap. But Jeff Bridges is gonna win.
The definition of revenge, you can make really any story be a revenge tale. So
it's true. All right, Will, bring us home, and then we're going to bring you home because we've got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. So, I don't know. My mind first went to John Wick.
Okay.
As maybe I don't know if that's a great one. I love The Princess Bride. That's so awesome. And then it's been a while since I think I've seen True Grit, but Unforgiven is a masterpiece as well. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know that I have a good revenge one that I go back to. I mean, it's not something that I think about a lot. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know. I think it's a good thing. I think that me in high school and like buddy who cheated on his girlfriend and thinks he's the victim. I think that we're kind of maybe not the best. If you're like always thinking of revenge. Probably not a positive thing about you as a human being. Now, I got a question. I'm looking at, okay, now we're down to 2 minutes. All right, I was going this says 6 minutes and my phone says 2. So you're sitting at 185 backers and now we're back to 6 minutes. I don't know how this is happening. Time is a circle and it keeps going to 2 minutes and then 5 minutes. 185 backers who are going to get a hardcover in theory. So there's going to be some digital backers, I understand.
Yep.
$7,100 of a $6,000 goal. You're killing your goal. How do you feel? You got 5 minutes to go or 2 minutes? I don't know what is happening with my computer.
75 seconds on my side.
Yeah, my phone says a minute and my computer says 5 minutes. So like I don't know. I'm you know what? It's my fault. I watched Star Trek: The Voyage Home today, so there's some time travel shenanigans at my house. I
Yep.
apologize. How you feeling?
You know, it's good. It's this one's been it's taken longer than I hoped to, hit that first fund, because we didn't hit funding until last night.
Mhm.
And we've obviously gone over that, which is great. And 185 backers for a hardcover, I'm thrilled with that. I'm really looking forward to getting this book out there,
Yeah.
because it's going to be this oversized hardcover that I'm going to cram as much stuff in there as I can. It's going to have all the story and just show off Pablo's art, Alice's art, and all the hard work that Ryan and James and Brant put into it. It's just going to be a great showcase. And about 5 seconds to go.
Yeah, so get on it very quick, watchers, if you can, because it is happening.
Will, I feel like ever since we came into orbit of each other, crossover division has been a thing. So when did this start for you, and when did the first issue come out?
Oh God, first issue was in, I think, July of 2020. So the pandemic. It was, everything was shut down. It's funny because I had originally done an 8-page story that I was going to use to pitch to publishers, and then there were no publishers, there were no distributors. So I was like, okay, I guess we don't need them. Let's just go to Kickstarter. And
Yeah.
Thanks, Shawnee.
Yeah, Shawnee and Blake kind of fight for our most awesome watchers and listeners. So getting a congrats from Shawnee is huge. And Blake says you broke 7,000. Yeah, like
Thanks,
huge
Blake.
last couple days to come in super strong. That has to feel great. So let's all raise a glass to Will. And guess what, Will? Your campaign's done. You're done. We're going back to comedy.
That's right.
Let's get to hear a little bit about Charlie Spot George. If you could share Charlie Spot and tell us a little bit about where this came from.
Absolutely. So, I think this is it. Does this look right to y'all? Nope. That's my Twitter page.
Yeah, listen, all porn off unless you think it's something I'd enjoy.
You're not the boss.
Do what I want.
And guess what? If you think I wouldn't enjoy it, I still might. So,
So, I mean, to go all the way back to the beginning, Charlie Spot started because I've worked in downtown Boston for 10 years, took the exact same route in and out to work. And over that time, I don't know if they were homeless or they weren't, but I noticed kind of like the same people begging for money, busking, were kind of always in the same spot, spring, summer, fall, winter. And after a while, I just like, all right, there's got to be some sort of system, right? Some sort of like gentleman's agreement about who gets what spot. And, being a writer and a creator with, a 20-minute train ride in and out, you just start playing what if. And then it kind of dawned on me that, like, in the grand scheme of things, I'm the interloper. Like, I'm just coming in for the day, doing my job and going home.
This is their spot, right?
Right. This is their home.
Right.
And it was right by Boston Common, which is a much smaller Central Park vibe, but just to kind of set the scene for you. That's kind of the area that we were in. And so, like I said, it just started like, all right, so what's really happening when we're not here? And that's a bit where the magical element of the story kind of came in, that there's this entire world going on that, 98% of the world that calls this area home has no idea what's going on. And then and then it started like, okay, this spot, like someone's got a spot and they lose it, and they got to figure out how to get it back. It was maybe fleshed out that much, maybe a little bit more. There was something for me that I was like, I think there's something there. And I was talking with some friends, some movie making friends, and I gave him like that half pitch. And one of my friends was like, yeah, what are you going to do with the other 90 minutes of your movie? And that really pissed me off. So I've always said the secret sauce to Charlie's Spot is just enough spite to make sure that the story gets told and made well. So, whether he knows it or not, I'm flipping him off with every page.
So there's a bit of revenge in the story and a whole lot of revenge in how the story got made.
The fact that it got made and that people are digging it, and that, you all were talking about like that rereadable factor, the putting things in there that you hope people recognize or check out, or notice. And so people seeing that kind of stuff, that's the revenge right there. The people are digging it and sometimes diving deep into it and picking up the things you hope they would see. So, and then fleshing out the whole story, when I was trying to think about, all right, well, who's the type of person that would have one of these busking spots? I started with, homeless veteran. That's kind of, that's a quick way to, describe somebody and have somebody go, oh, okay. Right. Like that I get it. That's in the lexicon. But as I was kicking that around the same time, I ended up watching two different shows, like within 2 weeks of each other, where one of the main thrusts was the crazy veteran who loses it and shoots up the whatever. And again, that's also like a lexicon thing that we're all used to, for better, for worse. But seeing it be the plot point in two different shows on two different channels just really hit me as bad, for lack of a better word or a thesaurus word. It felt lazy and it felt wrong. My dad served. I've got friends that have served. And even if they're dealing with stuff, they are not a danger to anyone. And I didn't like that the crazy veteran was becoming this shorthand. And that, for a lot of people, when they think veteran, they think, oh, they're just one bad day away from, shooting up the 7-Eleven. So with that in mind, I then became very hell-bent on like making a full-fledged character. If I was going to go with homeless veteran, I owed it to everybody to make sure that this was a real human being. And then when you're talking about Mandrill, it kind of hit me. It's kind of the same idea of like, I want this like core, good, grounded central character, and then surround him with the most ridiculous people and situations. So the comedy is never going to come from, he's a homeless veteran. That's not funny. That's cruel and it's mean.
Yeah.
But he can be a very serious character with a bunch of, insane people around him. And to me, that's interesting. I love taking regular people and putting them in irregular situations and seeing what happens. And so that's kind of how we started building it up. That Charlie in general is someone who has removed himself a bit from society because he thinks he's too broken to be loved, to have friends, that he doesn't want to be a burden on anyone. So he has built up walls.
Did you do any research on veterans and the homeless? Because it's shocking. The percentages of the homeless that are veterans, it's shocking and appalling, actually.
Yeah. And, and kind of taking a universal truth, which is we all have those low moments where we think whatever is going on in our lives, it's like, it's that maybe it would be better for the people that I love, if like they just didn't have to deal with it, We've all been there. So let's just take that universal truth and turn it up to 11 and put, someone in a bear suit around him and clowns and bears fighting with, balloon swords, to the death. But ultimately, kind of like the thesis of the story is, what's the better way to go to protect yourself and those around you by building up walls, or do you take the risk, drop those walls, let people in, and hope for the best? And so that's kind of like the like 12th layer story that we're telling here. But I promise you, it's a comedy.
Yeah. So you kept using the word irregular. So I want to get to. We talked about it for a second, and then I stopped you before the show started. You've done a Kickstarter campaign for Charlie Spot #1.
Yes.
And now you have a Kickstarter campaign for the entire series, Charlie Spot 1 through 4.
Yes.
Okay, so what? Wow, how? Why? What?
Sure. It kind of goes back to, distribution. This series was supposed to come out originally through a publishing company. And when we were getting close to that kind of fell through. I had one publisher, and it was going to be distributed through another publisher, but that marriage kind of like dissolved. So I and a couple other books were just left with a publisher, but not a distributor. Distributor, gotcha. Sure, words.
Publisher.
So I got permission. I got permission to kickstart the first issue as a way to basically promote the series. Like, if we've got to wait a bunch of months, for us to finally come out, well, let's try and use some of that time to, like I said, start building an audience, get the word out there.
Even if somebody doesn't back it, we've heard Charlie Spot. So then I go into my local comic shop, I see it, I'm more likely to buy it.
Exactly. So, about 2 years ago, we did the Charlie Spot #1, and then it was December 21, and then March, April 22 that the 4 issues came out. And we kind of ran into a good problem, which was, as of a couple months ago, the first issue sold out. We have 2 variant covers, 2 variant covers that were retail, and they both sold out, which was fantastic. The problem is we had a bunch of 2s, 3s, and 4s, to the point that it would have been fiscally irresponsible to pulp those and move on or not do anything with them. So what this campaign is doing is helping us reprint the first issue so we can keep sets and bundles of these books together and going on, because we're small creators, one of the first launch book of a new publishing company in the back of Diamond Previews. Right. Those are a couple hurdles to get over for, again, what we were talking about earlier, for shops to roll the dice on this book. But, that's
Are you telling me that a local comic shop might have trouble buying a comedy about a homeless veteran?
I mean, yeah, right. And again, you keep trusting, but no, trust me, it's a comedy. It's fun. But so what I have found though is selling this at conventions is pretty easy. One, I mean, I fucking love this book. I'm insanely proud of this book. So you get me talking about this book, and at worst, you'll think well, he's very energetic about this. Mm-hmm. But when someone cracks it open and they see Meredith Laxton's art, Ali Pepitone's colors, and Taylor Esposito's letters, now it's oh, well, this thing also fucking looks gorgeous, right? And it looks pro. So if the pitch catches you, if part of that pitch catches you, and you open it up, and you're oh no, they know what they're doing. I I've had some fantastic conversations at conventions where something about all that matrix, something in there hooks people, and they don't just buy it; they're like excited to buy it, which is the best. So I didn't want to let that go, So what do? We go to Kickstarter, right? Like that's in our DNA at this point. So yeah, that's where we are right now. So that was the point of this campaign was, hey, not only will you get the complete series, because chances are, you missed it or weren't able to pick it up, but by you buying a copy, you're also going to make sure I can keep copies around for other people to discover, forever, for as long as I want to keep this book alive. We can do that.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of all of this, and it's part of why we use the tagline, just keep print alive. Like you don't understand. You think, oh yeah, I'm giving $15 and I'm getting a comic book. You're like, you don't have any idea what you're doing, what that $15 means. Like, because especially for us, because we're publishing a bunch of books, you're not helping just us or this one creator. You're helping every other creator. Like, you're keeping so many other books alive and going and in print. And like a story like this, you talk about, riding into Boston on the P and passing through. Like, I love these stories of these other worlds that you don't even realize that you're just being a visitor in for a brief second. And then you can bring this to all these people. I had a friend, I grew up in Rochester, New York. I had a friend who made a living dumpster diving. And I asked him, I was like, how did you get into this? He was like, oh, well, I had a friend who was retiring from dumpster diving, and I inherited his route. And so now I was like, okay, I need you to explain like 5 things, not one sentence.
Right.
Like, I didn't understand. I didn't that any of that existed, but it's just there. It's there underneath your eyes, underneath your nose, and you can tell a story to bring it to people, and suddenly there's a whole new world for them.
Yeah, one of the night, like when you do something, like this, again, homeless veterans, it's there's a lot of baggage that comes with that type of character, and like I said, I can sit there and Rich Duick, who is a fantastic writer on his own, who was the editor on this book, and
sweet,
he and I can sit down there and go through the script and go through the story and do everything we can to be as respectful as we want. And then you put it out there and you just pray. And the conversations I've had with people who either are veterans or recently somebody who worked at the local VA, pick up the book and like compliment the humanity of the book. And how we treat Charlie, like that's fucking huge. Because again, it's like we're trying to tell good stories, and in a story like this, you're trying to tell a human story. Again, along with this menagerie of characters you see on the cover right there. That's huge.
It sounds to me from the outside that you've been very careful not to punch down in your comedy, and punching down is super easy and lazy and doesn't.
Punching up is so much more fun.
It's more fun and it's funnier. So I'm really glad that it sounds like you really made that effort, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I mean, again, I want to give all the effort. Also, Meredith Laxton, who's the artist. If it's cool, I'm going to scroll down a bit. There's more to talk about, but we're talking about Meredith and her art. And again, Meredith Laxton, co-creator and artist, Ali Pepitone colors, Taylor Esposito letters. Meredith's style just was so human and real, but also she could put a bear and a clown fighting together and it makes sense. Right? Like nothing looks out of sorts. It's little things like, you're getting character acting, just if we took the words out. This is his his best friend, whether he wants him to be or not, Andre and Charlie. And just again, like Meredith put so much heart into this, and like y'all were talking about earlier, ownership of the book. And just the you were talking about cartography. One of the early ideas I had was to play up the idea like this whole park, let's treat it like a D&D map, where each of these busking groups, the clowns, the guys dancing, the improv troupe, the jugglers, they all have their own section of the kingdom of the park. And she comes back with this, and it's just beautiful and awesome. And then one of my favorite things in comics is the panel staying still and the comedy happening in between, and she nailed that as well. So she can go from from like the outlandish D&D map to these incredible facial acting to nailing the comedy timing in a comic. And she was a freaking dream collaborator to work with, just making, I mean, they all were, everyone took their moment and elevated the entire book.
We probably have a Taylor Esposito lettered comic every second or third show, right, Will?
I was going to say.
I think so, yeah.
He works his butt off. So
and the reason I went with Taylor is I was originally going to letter this book. My lettering is fine. It'll never win an Eisner, but it'll never be the reason you put a book down and go, ew. It'll be fine. It'll get the job done. But as Meredith is going on, and like I said, elevating everything, Allie's coming in and popping these colors, elevating everything. I'm working with Rich to make the words, as good as possible. So, I'm elevating it as best I can. It just hit me like, and I'm going to put fine lettering on this. Like, I'm going to get to the, to the 5-yard line and go, we're good. Let's kick the field goal.
Yeah.
Like, no. Like,
the difference between a good book and a great book is like 5% everywhere.
Yes.
Yep.
And, speaking of Taylor, I mean, he's absolutely one of those names that is always out there. So I knew of him, and I knew friends who had worked with him and recommended him. And you go to the shop any Wednesday, and you're going to see one or two of his books, whether it's DC, Dark Horse, Dynamite, whatever. But what really sold me on him is I was at a local convention, walked by someone's table, noticed that their book had Taylor's name on it. So I started flipping through it, and the same quality of lettering that was on that Dynamite book, that was on that DC book, was in this person's book, who had printed 25 copies and was bringing it to the convention. And that's what sold me. It's like, all right, if he's going to put the same amount of effort, again, into something that's going to sell 1,000 copies, into one that's going to sell 25 copies, that's the guy I want to work with.
And Will and I have said this kind of since we started this. If you're starting this journey, and you're a writer, and you're going to try to find an artist and maybe an editor, there is not a single dollar that you can spend on your comic that has more value per dollar than a good professional letterer.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely,
going from a poor artist to a very good illustrator is $50 a page to $400 a page. Going from a poor letterer to a really good letterer is $5 a page to $20 a page, $25 a page.
And there are so many poor letterers out there.
And yes, and you know what? When I say poor illustrator, that's the eye of the beholder. There is some art that the first 2 pages doesn't feel right. By page 8 is perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I just didn't get it till I got to here. Yes, this art is perfect for this story. It just wasn't what I expected. But a letterer who is not far along on their journey, or let's call a spade, a letterer who is a writer or an artist who doesn't want to pay a letterer, knows what they're doing, will take you out of a story faster than anything else on a comic page.
And there's so many opportunities to utilize the benefits of the medium through lettering.
Mm-hmm.
That people just ignore, that people just don't take that opportunity, don't take that advantage, don't leverage that, where you could just, man, a good letterer can change shit, can just change shit.
I can tell you, our first time we worked with DC Hopkins on Tart was Tart number 4. Ludovic had lettered the first 3 issues. And I wanted to save him time. DC was an up-and-comer. He was a nice guy. I was like, yeah, let's try it. And he had done something on a page in Tart 4 that Ludo actually, he didn't complain about. He just asked. He said, this doesn't seem right. Why did you do this? And DC answered, I did this because blank, blank, and blank. And Ludo wrote back, oh, I never would have thought of that. That's great. Please leave it exactly as is.
Yep.
Because it's an art form in and of itself.
100%. 100% of how to lead the eye, how to make it an easy page to read, an easy panel to read. You're right. It's a hidden art form that when it's done right, you kind of don't notice it. Mm-hmm. But, definitely as I've gotten further, as I've been into comics more, and like I said, I did letter a bunch of my own books, so I know enough to know what I don't know, and I know enough to see a gap of where I'm at and what Taylor's doing, and just also what like Taylor is doing, kind of like effortlessly.
Yeah,
just he's got a great letterer like Taylor. They have the hours, so they letter and they know how to lay it out the way we breathe.
Right.
And that's valuable on its own. So again, to be able to hand this book over to Taylor and know I wouldn't have to do a thing.
Yeah. Shawnee says in the chat, it's fine. Everything's fine. Great for a meme. Not so much for lettering a comic.
Not so much when you're asking people for their money.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's not just, lettering encompasses graphic design because the lettering is a graphic element for the page. It's also storytelling because you're guiding the eye, and there's so much that goes into good lettering that most people just don't notice. But there's so much there. It takes a lot of effort to make it be so effortless.
Yes.
Nothing pulls you out of a book faster than which one am I supposed to read first?
Yeah.
And that's the first level.
Yeah.
But that's not even getting into the complicated aspects of it.
That's not even, your artist has tried something crazy and it doesn't, it sort of works, but it doesn't. And you go to your letterer and you say, hey, what can you do? And then they place 8 balloons on the page that makes that crazy experiment work. Whereas it wouldn't work without the lettering, because they bail you out when you aren't doing it right too.
Yeah.
Will and I do our best to be like, look, letterers are the patron saints of comics, because they're the last person to touch the book. They're the fastest workers, and they will fix problems for you, but give them their due.
Exactly.
The perfect encapsulation of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
It's words and pictures. Letterers do the words, guys.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So that's, like I said, that's this creative team that I am, years since we started this journey, that I'm still so grateful for. I am still so happy to put over and introduce people to, because they're amazing.
That's awesome.
They took the kernel of an idea brought their experiences and expertise into it, and it grew bigger and better than I could ever hope for. Like I keep telling people, if you pick up the book and you read the whole story, stop at page 18 of issue 4. That's where my original script ended. And I'm telling you, I wrote the ending and I was like, oh, that's a good ending. I'm a good writer. I'm so smart. I'm so clever. And I shared it with Meredith. And she looked at us like, yeah, that's good, but wouldn't it make more sense if we did this? And I was like, oh my God, yes, it would make sense if we did that. And that's a much better ending than I had. So please do that ending, please. You know,
That's awesome. That's great.
And you know, so at the end of it, when you get to page 19 and 20, and all of a sudden, you know, someone's chopping onions underneath you, and you know, you're trying to hold it all in, that's Meredith. You know, and I feel like that, you know, I think traditionally that would be something, oh, what a great job by the writer, which is why I want to make it clear. Like, you know, if, you know, like I said, if you are perfectly devastated by this ending, which we're trying to do,
Again,
then it's all Meredith, and I just was lucky enough to get introduced to her at the right time. You know, the stars aligned that the right artist and I were connected to each other.
But you were willing to put your ego at the door and take a better suggestion too.
So I've been like creating stuff for at this point over 30 years. It started as in music, and I still play music. But I have been in collaborative art.
You should do music for Kickstarter videos. Have you ever thought of that?
Every now and then, you know, when I'm dragged in kicking and screaming. But what I've learned, and really it was making comics. I mean, I really can credit comics for making me such a better collaborator in everything else that I do. You know, that idea of, I mean, well, first of all, I'm just addicted to creating things. If I have a superpower, it's that I have stayed curious even as I've gotten older. You know, I still see things and think, oh, that looks like fun. I want to do that, which is why I do web series and podcasts and how I got into comics. But just realizing that my favorite part of anything is sitting around with other creative people and tossing a ball around. And, you know, someone else adds something. I might have been the one that started it, but I am so much more excited for the thing that all of us have built together. And like, that's the thing I can't wait to make. And then just realizing, and again, I thank comics for drilling this into my head. Everybody is an expert at what they're at. I will never be as good as visual layout and acting and just the illustrative part as Meredith is. I will never understand a color wheel as well as Allie does. I will never understand lettering as well as Taylor does. So whether it's comics or, you know, in the music thing, like, I will never be as good a bass player as the bass players I am blessed to work with right now. So why in God's name am I telling them what to do? You know, so so my philosophy now is I'm going to paint to a target. I'm going to set up the guardrails. However you get to that target, I don't care. You know, I'll nudge you a little left, a little right if I have to. But if you find your way to that target, I am so much more interested in that, because that gets the people you're working with, they're involved, they're thinking, they get to bring their creativity to it, they get to bring their experiences to it, and they get to have a little more ownership of it. And especially in comics, this stuff takes twice as long as you think it is, even when you pad your stats. Even when, you know, even when it's like, all right, I think it's going to take 3 months, so it's really going to take 6 months, which means it's really going to take 12 months, right? Like it just is. When everybody
you just hurt my heart, George.
Right. Well, I mean, the naivete of me 13 years ago, thinking, oh, comics will be great because then I can make things faster. You know.
I said stop punching down.
You know, I say it because I still laugh at myself of like those early days of thinking I knew what comics was. But then also as an education to anybody listening, you know, and so like I said, this like philosophy that I'm very protective and adamant about. This stuff takes time.
Yeah, I have to interject for 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm an American. I grew up on X-Men Adventures, Batman, and Ludovic, my co-creator on Tart, is French. So we decided to work together, and we did an outline that was going to be somewhere around 42 issues. And so I looked at that outline and I thought, 42, about 4 years. And he looked at that outline and he thought, okay, 142 issue a year. So we're going to work on this for 32 years. And we didn't know enough about each other to communicate that. So we had no idea that the American thing is 12 issues in an annual every year, and the French way to put out a comic book is 142-page graphic novel a year. And so we had done like 3 issues together before we had that conversation. So it takes a little longer than you might expect sometimes, and also talk to your collaborators about what you both expect. We've found our equilibrium, but when you talk about it, I'm like, oh God, you're killing me.
Again, that's why I take it very seriously, like very seriously, that these projects, I'm going to try everything I have in my power to make it as collaborative as possible and as stress-free as possible, knowing full well it will be stressful. Like when everybody is on the same page and everybody's liking each other, and everything's working the way it should be, life gets lifey, and the real world interrupts. And so I can't control that. I can't control how many people end up buying, the book when it's done, how many people back the Kickstarter. But what I can do is I can at least protect the process.
But what I've found, the direct market does punish you for that. But Kickstarter market doesn't. I found that the Kickstarter market, the readers are there for you when you're ready to put out something, whether that's, if you're a Pat Shand and you can put out a book every month and be on Kickstarter, they're there for you. If you're me and you can put out maybe 2, they'll be there for you. And I think that's wonderful about the Kickstarter market.
100%. Yeah. Oh no, Chris.
Oh, we lost Chris. Okay.
I bored him to death.
He's back. He's back. He's better than ever.
I've got the size of a small child.
That is fine. I sometimes dogs hop in my lap, take care of small children. Is there I'm sure there is a way. So this is not even an is. So how can somebody back and get all 4 issues on this campaign, digitally and physically?
Yeah, so we've basically got 3 different things we got going on. Like I said, there are 2 retail versions. There's this cover A, which kind of has the more traditional comic book cover from Victor Alpe and Meredith Laxton. And then for the variant cover, when we were asked to come up with a variant, Meredith had this incredible idea. And when you read the story, you'll see that Charlie kind of does painting as PTSD therapy. Mm-hmm. So she was like, I want to do what I think Charlie's paintings look like. And so, as you can see here, these are actual paintings that Meredith did. Like these are physical, watercolor paintings that she did, and then practically set this whole thing up. The only thing that's photoshopped in is this Comics Experience Publishing logo. Oh, cool. Everything else she set up and photographed. And when you put these 4 issues together, it kind of looks like a makeshift art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is just freaking beautiful. And then because we were talking about loyal friends, family, and supporters, because this book was out in the world, and I'm lucky enough to have a handful, 2 handfuls of people like they come up to the table. What's new? My point, they pay like that, which is the friggin' dream. We wanted to do something special for someone who wanted to support, but maybe already had everything. And so, speaking of Fernando Pinto again, Fernando Pinto, artist, and Ellie Wright, colorist, came together to do a brand new variant cover for issue #1. And so, not only is it fantastic because Fernando's fantastic and Ellie's fantastic, they are also the visual creative team for the new project that I'm working on that'll hopefully come out later this year. So it was a way to not only work with Fernando and Ellie again, but a way to introduce the Charlie Spot crowd to this creative team of the next thing I'm going to introduce them to. So kind of act as a bit of bridge between the two projects.
I can't say enough good things about Fernando.
He is. I'll come back someday and go on and on about Fernando in this project. Back-to-back dream collaborators I'm working with right now. Fernando's killing it.
He's
and he just sent me new pages. He just sent me new pages today, and they're gorgeous.
One of the most well-rounded creators I've ever encountered. He put out a book back when we were 2 and 5 inks before Invader warped that. The fact that didn't become a worldwide phenomenon, I still don't understand. That book is phenomenal. He is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Everything he does, he just kills.
And again,
he's
another
just
one
a
of
damn good dude.
That's the other thing. Like, again, as I've gotten older and still decided, I'm getting older, and probably none of this stuff is ever going to buy me a Malibu mansion, but I love this shit. So working with people I enjoy working with has become incredibly
important. God, yeah.
So, it's just as important, if not more, than the talent level.
I'd take a Malibu shack.
Right. So to work with Fernando again, who not only is a fantastic collaborator, bringing his own killer ideas to it, who's also killing the translation of the script to the page, but then also just a fucking pro, just a pro's pro to work with, and just a good dude on top of it. It's the dream,
He does comedy in comics better than most. I mean, I'm struggling to think of people who do, and all by himself, by the way.
Yep.
Just the dude, his timing on the page. Again, I can't say enough good things about Fernando.
The pages that he's got coming in, I told him, it hit me the other day, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing this last name wrong, but Rob Gilroy, who I was introduced to through Chew, and he's got his own books out there. What worked for me, what blew me away with Chew and Rob's art, is Rob's art was so flexible that when it needed to be comedy, it was funny. When it needed to be action, it was action. When it needed to be actory, it was actory. It was still Rob's style, but it was so malleable. It worked for every beat and every moment and emotion. And looking at what Fernando's giving me, he's doing that same thing. So that what we've got going on is kind of like a B-movie sci-fi gimmick. And we're leaning into that B-movie tongue-in-cheek part. And when Fernando needs stuff to be funny and over the top, you believe it. When it needs to be action-oriented, you believe it. And when we get scary or more leaning into the horror, it works. And he's not changing his style.
Yeah.
He's just that good.
I believe he's giving this away on his website right now. So if you want to check out his stuff, I think
if you want to follow him, Instagram, if you follow him on Twitter, I've given him and I've given Ellie, I've given everybody permission. Like, go keep like we got to build momentum for this book, and again, it's going to take us a while to get there. So like post. So every now and then, if you see like a cryptic, pen and ink post from him, it's probably from our book. But yeah, so again, bringing it all the way back around, Fernando and Ellie are putting a variant cover for the issue number 1, and that's only going to be printed for this campaign. If 25 people buy it, we're printing 27, or 28, so me, Fernando, and Ellie can have a copy as well.
Can I ask, are those paintings that Meredith did, are those original paintings available?
No, because I have them and I am not ready to get rid of them.
Nice.
But
see here, I'm going to interject, and I'm going to kind of speak for you, and I apologize. And if I'm wrong, tell me wrong. So, unfortunately, if you're watching this, Charlie Spot is funded. This book is going to happen.
Yep.
If it wasn't, it's a possibility those paintings might go up as an add-on, but it's funded, so you can't have them. Am I wrong?
Yeah, for so many reasons, I can't.
Yeah.
But when Meredith started the book, she did she was traditional for about the first 7 pages. And so after the first Kickstarter, we have 4 pages available. So there are 4, pen and ink, like, you can have the board that it's on pages. What I'm really excited about is so far 3 out of the 4 pages have been bought. So there's still 1 page available for people to pick up.
Nice.
And we were talking about sending stuff around the globe. Like,
but
one of the things.
That's 7 pages out of 4 issues?
Yes, and then she switched to digital.
So incredibly rare. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where's it going? Oh, we were talking about, just the I don't know, I mean, it's cool, but it's also like rewarding and energizing to send stuff to Australia, to wherever. One of these pages is going to Norway.
Wow.
Which, it's fucking fantastic. That again, this platform allows us to connect with people that we never would have, and not only that, they get one of Meredith's pages. So yeah, like I said, as of right now, 3 out of the 4 are claimed, and we're kind of doing a first come first serve, which is why I haven't figured out what's sold out yet, because they need to make their choices. But yeah, like I said, 1 of 4 is left over from that. And then, like I said, I love my collectible pins as well. So we took our person in a bear suit and turned it into this soft enamel pin. And then we had a couple variant covers from our first Kickstarter available. One from Meredith Laxton, one from Jackie Morrow. And so, I'm kind of cracking open my vault. And if anybody wants to pick up, the variant covers from the first Kickstarter, those are available as well.
Is Toddler Apocalypse as an add-on? Is Toddler Apocalypse available as an add-on?
Absolutely.
All right, that
so
is.
Yeah, all five of books from my back catalog are available as PDFs and print as well.
Cool. All right, well, let's stop sharing the screen.
Yeah.
It's getting to almost 1 o'clock my time. I'm having a blast and also about to fall asleep on you guys because I'm on the East Coast. And I don't know where everybody else is, but I am having a blast. But I have good news, Will. You do not have to do a 30-second pitch. You're done. In case somebody is on Facebook or YouTube watching this live and missed the 30-second pitch at the beginning, we're going to go through and give them one quick hit, and hopefully they'll be like, that's awesome, I want to back it and listen to this show. Mike, let's talk about Unknown Caller. If you were at a comic convention and someone walked by, how would you get their attention about Unknown Caller?
It's part John Wick. It's part Sixth Sense. It's a love letter to Asian cinema and the revenge genre. If you love thrillers, if you love a little bit of mystery, and you love black and white comics, which I absolutely do, this is something you just absolutely need to pick up. It's an 84-page one and done, and you're going to love it.
Nice. All right, Chris, how would you get somebody interested in Mandrill PI?
All right. Who stops cartoons when they turn criminal? It's Mandrill PI. Mandrill PI is a noir urban fantasy set in a cartoon world starring an anthropomorphic mandrill who investigates occult and supernatural mysteries. It's kind of like Hellboy meets Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. And we just did the deep dive, but you know what? I'm still going to let you do your 30-second pitch, George.
You're so kind. So Charlie Spot is when his prized panhandling spot in the city park is stolen. A guarded homeless veteran reluctantly teams up with a ragtag group of park buskers and performers to discover who stole his spot and how to get it back. And if you are a fan of Terry Moore's Strangers in Paradise or Motor Girl or Scotty Young's Middle West or Fuck Fairyland, if you like stories that will have you laughing on one page and then ripping your heart out in the best way on the next, that is Charlie Spot.
Awesome. And Will, you don't have a 30-second pitch, but give everybody 10 seconds about how good it feels to be funded and to be done with the hardcover version of Crossover Division.
It feels great, except now all the work really begins, right?
Yeah.
But it's fun work, so I'm looking forward to it.
Fulfillment is the most important part of this, and also like you don't have the greatness of like creating the thing or whatever. But if you don't fulfill it, you don't get to do Crossover Division number 6. So you know what? Get on it.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, it was a blast. I really enjoyed meeting Mike and Chris. Great meeting you. George, great to see you again. If
Thank
you
you.
have another book, please, if Invader's got another book, let us know. I
Every
really
month. At least one every month.
we do this every Friday. You let me know when you're ready, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Good night, everybody. Victor, Shawnee, Blake. We had some people popping it off in the comments. Tom, thank you, everybody. It's always a blast to have your questions. There were like 3 or 4 questions that really helped. So thank you for being part of our show in the comments, and we hope to see you next week for some more crowdfunding campaigns that are kicking ass and taking your names. So good night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.